little bit about any specific doubts that you've had historically, recently, and how you personally cope with doubt?
Very recently, very recently, within the past few weeks, I was in the car. I'm in the car every morning at 5 a.m. And that's where I do my prayers, in my car. It's where I do one of my prayers, is in my car, because it's quiet and it's dark and I have a drive. And so I very much was praying it's not fair. And it's not fair because we didn't do anything. And so it's not fair that we have to go through this. It's not fair that everything just can't be back to normal and I can't just be doing what I was doing before. And it's not fair turns into, you're not a good God. And you're not a good God sometimes turn into, is there really a God? And then that turns into, you have to be real, because everything in me says that you are. Everything I read and believe and see in nature and in people says that you are. Therefore, if you're not the good God that you say you are, you're still God and you're still bigger than me. And I need to understand you more and submit to you. And that is so hard for me. I'm very honest with you. It's really hard for me. I do not like to lay down my sword. And it's hard for me to submit to something when I don't think it's fair. And so, and I remember that particular morning I was able to lay it down, but it didn't set my day at ease. Like, it wasn't like, oh, today's now a perfect day.
Yeah.
You know, I still
hated it.
I still hated it.
Yep.
I still hated that I still hated it. Yep. I have to wear a mask every day. I still, just being open.
I'm glad.
There are moments that are really, really hard.
Yeah. And I think thank you so much for being honest about that, because you've already said you've been a believer for 11 years. So no one here is saying there's a point where you reach that you no longer feel those things and experience those things. And that's true for all of us. And I don't know why we're not more transparent about it.
Because I feel like that's not true for everybody.
It's true. It is true.
I feel like it's not true for everybody.
It is, though.
Yeah.
And that's why Paul said it.
Yeah.
And that's why we have Job and Lamentations and the Psalms everywhere in the Bible. We're in good company. Even if we thought no current day believer was experiencing that, huge Bible characters. I hate the word characters.
Yeah, I know.
Historical, because that makes it sound like it's a story.
Right.
People in the Bible who we really look up to experienced doubt and frustration with themselves and the world around them and with God. And I think it's so much healthier to just say it. And he can take it. Can we press in on it a little more?
Sure.
Your story. Did you, and be honest, because it could go either way and it doesn't, it's all valid. When you were having that experience in prayer, did you feel like God, the Spirit comforted you? Or did you just feel like, okay, I just have to move on from this moment because it's a loop that goes nowhere?
It was very much an obedience moment. It didn't feel like, it felt like, I know my words aren't always right there,
okay.
but
thank God for YouTube.
It did. Yeah. Right, that's true.
Although the sounds you made are understandable.
Right, it didn't feel like a release. It just felt like you need to, at this moment, you need to tell yourself, and you need to remind yourself, and you need to be okay with that.
Yeah. I'm just gonna throw out there that we did a whole series on 1 John called Trust and Obey. And in 1 John and in many other places in the Bible, but 1 John's a great place to go get it. We learn about this circle and what you just talked about in obedience. Obedience does eventually lead to trust.
Yeah.
Because when you're obedient, God shows up. He is faithful to us as we are faithful to him. And then when he shows up, you remember that you can trust him. And then that building of the trust helps you to be obedient the next time around. So I just want to, if someone wants to learn more about how they can experience that cycle, because it's not so easy. You know, you are a seasoned believer, and you're also, Kathy, a pretty disciplined person. Like, I think of you as a much more disciplined person than me, mostly because you get up at you're in your car at 5 a.m, getting like being human. You know, so I don't want anybody to dismiss, oh, well, that Kathy can do that because she just has an extraordinary amount of self-discipline. Can you speak to that?
Well, I can tell you, I don't have an extraordinary amount of self-discipline. So it's funny that you say that, because I think the opposite of myself. I think that I do not have self-discipline. I laugh because I feel like I'm impetuous and so I think that's really interesting. I follow my passions, and which is both good and bad, because in the past it's led to really dangerous things. In the future, prayerfully, it will lead to better things. God has opened my eyes in a way that I love his word. I love it, and I want to tell everybody else how amazing it is. And I want everyone else to love it as much as I do, so we can talk about it all the time, because I'm extremely passionate. But in that way, I was gifted with the ability to self-discipline in that manner, right? In this very particular manner, because then other things get kind of lost in the wayside. So to speak to it, I would encourage, in whatever your gift is, whatever is your natural inclination. Like, I have recognized my natural inclination is, like I said, it's passion for certain things. And so I get excited, and the more excited I am, the more I want to do it. I've always been a reader, and so reading is a passion. It doesn't require self-discipline for me because it's passionate. Obedience requires self-discipline for me. That's a big one, and that's one I actually have to work on really hard. So whatever it is that God has already gifted you with, or you're already naturally doing, you enjoy watching movies, then there are podcasts to watch.
So you're saying that the way that anybody could deal with doubt is to turn to the parts of the faith that are available to them that speak to their own personality.
Yep.
Oh, that's good.
Because we are so gifted in the United States. We have so much. You can listen, you can watch, you can sleep and have it in your,
be in a
your
group.
earbuds.
You can be by yourself.
Right. There are so many ways for us. And it brings me to the parable of the talents, which he says, I give you essentially what you're able. And in our country, he's given us a lot. He's given us so many ways to be in his word and to understand him. And so not only do I consider that a responsibility, but I consider it a huge blessing.
Yeah.
Because if I really just like to listen to the radio, I can listen to Christian music all day long.
Or Christian talk.
Or Christian, right? I can watch YouTube podcasts all the time. So we've been very blessed.
Yeah, that's
with
true.
an abundance
that's true.
of things from him.
Audio, video. Yeah, yeah. So there's not really, just instead of isolating and turning away, like, go dig in.
Yeah.
And cope with the doubts that you're experiencing, because I really believe that God will lead you to people and places that will allow him to speak into the doubts. He wants to.
Yeah.
He wants to.
I don't think we should hide from them, because I appreciate that you said everyone has them, because I definitely see people that I think don't have them. And I feel a little, I covet it a little bit, feel a little bit jealous, but I also see that people then fall away, and it breaks my heart. Like, a couple of famous people have been really open about falling away from the faith. And I think only if they talked to someone before, if they had really opened themselves up to talking to people about their fears and their doubts and their weaknesses, because we all have them, we all suffer from them. And I think that could have made a difference.
Yeah. I wonder if you and I are thinking the same person in our lives who seems like she never experiences any doubt.
Maybe.
I'm thinking about Marilyn.
Yes. Yes.
She just has such faith.
Yes.
Okay, so that means we have to have her sit down and talk about how she copes with
Oh,
doubt.
I would love that.
Yeah, because she's a pillar.
Yeah.
I think to all of us in Study with Friends, she's the goal.
It seems to
she's
come so easy.
Yeah,
It's
it does
just-
seem. But I could tell you that she would, I'm sure, be transparent about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's do that.
Okay.
Stay tuned for that. You were gonna share some scriptures that you thought spoke to doubt, and I think they could be really helpful.
So as I was thinking about my own personal doubts, it brought me to Peter, which it comes up so much, right? Peter comes up so often because he's just someone that we turn to because we go, he's both so amazing and then such a mess.
Yeah.
And I love
Makes
that.
him very relatable.
It does. It makes him so relatable. So when we're in our struggles. And so it made me think of the story where, and I have it in front of me to read it, but it makes me think of the story where he walks on water.
Mm-hmm. And can you give
With
us the
Jesus.
reference?
Yeah. So the reference is Matthew 14, 22 to 33, which is a bigger chunk.
Sorry, I fell right out of my head.
Matthew 14, 22 to 33.
22.
It gives you a little bit of context. I opened it up a little bit.
Okay.
It gives you a little bit of context, but to just not to read the whole thing, but to give you the brief synopsis is where Jesus is. He sends them out on a boat, and he sends his disciples out on a boat. Peter is there with them, and he is on the mountain praying. And a great storm comes. And so they're rowing. Obviously, I'm very visual. They're rowing against the storm. You know, they're getting exhausted. It's rough water. They're probably scared. And he walks out onto the water. And it says, verse 26, it says, when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, it is a ghost. And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, take courage. It is I. Do not be afraid. Peter said to him, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. And he said, come. And Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came toward Jesus. But seeing the wind, he became frightened and began to sink. He cried out, Lord, save me. Immediately, Jesus stretched out his hand and took hold of him and said to him, you of little faith, why did you doubt? And then they got back in the boat. And in such a small piece, there's so many different pictures. Because Jesus says, command me to come out, right? Like he's like, again, he's this passionate, he's just like,
Peter.
Peter, he's command me to come out. And Jesus says, come out. Which who would even think about going out to walk on the water with him? Like, does it look fun? I don't know why he would think about walking.
It seems like a test. If it's you, tell me to come to you.
That's a good thought. And so he tells him to come out, and then he sees the wind. And so this doubt creeps in.
We can't see the wind.
That's true. You're right.
What do you think he's really seeing?
That's true.
I'm pressing you.
You're right, because he says seeing the wind. So I don't know. I mean, obviously he would have to feel it, but you're right.
Seeing the
seeing
effects,
the wind. Yeah,
I guess,
of the wind.
But it says seeing and
I
not
know.
hearing.
This is what I love about his word.
Me too.
So
Let's just play in it for a minute. Whatever it is, he was experiencing something scary.
Yeah.
Something frightened him. I think
I agree.
I think that's a reasonable extrapolation.
Yeah.
But when he saw the wind, why would it say that?
Yeah, because you can't see
You
wind.
cannot see the wind.
I love these things. I do. I love these things because these things are that make you think.
He was afraid. Oh, so we don't have to extrapolate. It says he was afraid. And beginning to sink.
Yeah.
So we could just, I think we can assume he saw some things that the wind was, I mean, it's the middle
Water
of
was coming
water.
in.
It's got to
Right.
be chaotic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry for
fascinating.
interrupting.
No, that's all right. I love that. 'Cause I think that's fascinating. And then he cries out to him. So he asks him to go in the water, and it says commands, which I thought is pretty cool too. So he commands him to go on the water. He goes out, and then doubts creep in because he sees something that he thinks is bigger than Jesus.
Amen.
And he thinks, I can't handle this. And so he immediately doesn't lean on Jesus, but he leans on his own understanding, and he starts to sink in the water. And I do that all the time. Because
Yeah. Wait, he experienced something that he thought was bigger than Jesus.
Yep.
And that's what caused him to doubt. Hold on. Let's just marinate in that for a second. A list of things is coming into my head of things that I can experience, that people around me experience: disease, death, pain, struggle, finances, relational, family, we experience brokenness that we think must be bigger than Jesus. And that's what causes us to doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And what does Jesus do? He stretches out his hand and he takes hold of him. And by the way, he doesn't make sure to not say something to him too. Like Jesus also says, why did you doubt? So he doesn't even hold back. And I mean, he comforts, but he doesn't even hold back. He also, don't have doubts. Don't doubt me.
Reprimands him a little bit.
He does. Don't doubt me. I love you. I'm out here with you. And he's always with us.
So there's so much in here
I know.
because it says immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. So he's in his physical solution showing Peter, this is not bigger than me.
Yeah.
I'm still standing on the water.
Yeah.
He didn't solve it miraculously. He grabbed him with his hand. There's so much here.
I know.
Why did you doubt? You have little faith. Why did you doubt? That's a great question for us to ask ourselves. Why did I doubt? What was the root of my doubt? And I'm not going to ask you to expose what the root of the "it's not fair" prayer was, because that's personal and I respect that. And also because I think it's better if you don't, because then it's more general and we all can relate.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but the question is, why do I doubt? What causes us to doubt? What are those things that we bump into? And I don't want to speed to the end of it because we made a little list of things that it could be. There's probably 100 other things.
Sure,
it could
yeah.
be. But you said this, you really quickly ran through it, and I thought it was great. You said, okay, first it was, it's not fair. Then it was, are you a good God? Are you really who you say you are? Which brings me to mind, and I'm not going to pull it up. Maybe we'll do it on a different episode, but it brings to mind John the Baptist asking Jesus that same question.
Yeah.
Are you who we thought you were?
Yeah.
Or should we expect somebody else? Doubt. Everybody in the Bible. The more you
uncover it.
Yeah.
The more you see.
The more you think about it, the more you see it. And I think that's a very common question and a common problem. If you are good, why XYZ? And I think that's probably the answer to Jesus's question for a lot of us. Why did you doubt?
Yeah.
Because your goodness did not seem to square up with what I'm experiencing. Do you want to take a stab at that one?
No, I think that I definitely think you answered that. I think that I would agree. What in my heart I consider what I want him to do, he didn't do. And so here we go, bigger issue, right? I'm equating myself with what I think that God should be doing. Bigger issue. So I'm putting myself on par with Christ, which I shouldn't be doing ever. Because then we go back to Job.
So what you're saying is
I created the
basically,
world.
that's a moment of it's all about me.
Yeah. Because I want what I want, and what I want I think is best.
Yes.
And I think that I know what is right.
And best.
Yeah. And even if it's just best for me at that moment, but I have these delusions of grandeur that it's best for everybody, but
even saying it out loud, we can hear like, well, that's so stupid, right? Like, why
Right.
would you ever think that you as a tiny little human know what's best?
Yeah.
But in that moment,
yeah.
Let's be even more real for a minute. There are times when I'm like, I don't care if it's best.
True.
This is what I want. I would say most of the time that happens with me for someone that I love. For me, I feel like, okay, I'll just suffer through it. But when someone I care about is suffering, or I guess if I were facing death and my kids were young or something like that, I would say, I don't care if it's what's best in the big picture. Yeah. This is what I want for the people that I love the most. So I'm going to be even more real and say, sometimes I don't even care if it's what's best, what's best according to his plan. It's what I want.
Yeah.
But you said something really honest And I would love for you to say it again and then really expand on the thought. Because you said you came to a point in that car conversation with God where you were like, well, it's a question, do I believe there is a God or not? If I believe that there is a God, he's bigger than me. It doesn't matter if he's good or not. He's bigger than me and I need to submit. That's huge. And I'd like you to tease that out a little more if you feel comfortable doing so.
I don't know. I'm not sure how much I can tease out, but that was the ultimate conclusion that I came to. So this is all true to me. So, and I know I bring up scripture a lot, but the book from start to finish is truth to me. And I read a lot of things where I know people say that Genesis is legend and things like that. And I know there are a lot of theological debates in one way or the other, but from my faith and from what I've come to believe over my 11 years as a believer, it's all true. Therefore, there is a God who created all the heavens, all the earth, every planet, the Milky Way, everything that ever exists. And if that is true, then that God is way bigger than my small, infinitesimal life on the earth. And I need to submit to that God because that God is a God who can and it chooses to control what he wants to control, when he wants to control it, how he wants to control it. And yeah, I mean, and I don't want to, I'm not a person who's like, I'm just a lowly, I don't submit to that in that way, but our God is a massive God. And I think we can make no mistake about it. And if our God did half of what he said he did, our God is a massively huge God. I think he's bigger than we can possibly understand.
I think so too.
And so I need to submit to that God because that God is way bigger than I can possibly imagine. And so my submission is the least that I can do, knowing that God is God. Does that make sense? I don't know if that expanded on it more,
but I think when you say it's the least I can do, I also think it's the logical thing to do. Because at the end of the day, if he created the universe, doesn't it seem like Don Quixote fighting windmills to try to fight against him?
Yeah.
You're bringing it from a faith point of view, like it's the least I can do to submit to him, and you didn't even bring in the Christ element, which of course we believe, like for what he did. Yes. Even if you leave Christ out of it, which rubs us all the wrong way, but just for a second, for those who are really grappling with like, is God real and do I believe and what do I do with that? If you just look at intelligent design, and I'm going to reference a guy who I worked with on the project Searching for God. His name is William Lane Craig. He's a super thinky guy, but he does a really great job of what's called the cosmological argument. This is a deep apologetics moment. But so different people in apologetics, the guy who wrote the foreword for our book, my book, for the project was Paul Copan. And he does a great job in coping with, he wrote a book called Is God a Moral Monster? Great book. So he does a lot of work. I mean, they can all do all of it. They're the best, I think, in the country right now. But Paul could speak really, really beautifully to this morality problem. Are you a good God? William Lane Craig is speaking to what you and I are talking about now was the universe created? And he does such a good job of just boiling it down and making it make sense. It's called if you want the whole real SAT name, it's called the Kalam cosmological argument. But basically, this is the root of it. If things were going to just pop into existence, why does that happen all the time?
Great question.
Right? So he just takes it all the way back to the Big Bang.
Yeah.
And it's a great thing to dive into. We won't do it here. Maybe we'll do it on another episode. So that's, if you're just wrestling with, is there even a God? That's a good place to start. Once you say to yourself, okay, seems like there probably is a creator. seems like this was organized. Then you have to deal with what kind of a God is he? And what do I do in response? And that's where we're sitting right now. There's a whole spectrum of apologetics. And I think it's important this is what I'm talking about, Kathy. Yeah. It's important for us to be at least somewhat conversational about each of the pieces of the spectrum, because someone could come up to you and be like, well, I just don't believe there's a God at all. Now, I'm not going to say to you, let me explain the cosmological argument, right, but I know the tenets of that argument. And I just said it to you in plain words. Well, if things were just going to pop into existence, why did that only happen just at one time? If that were something that would normally happen, how do you explain that? And we can, so I have some nuggets, right? And that's what I'm talking about. Equipping, again, especially women, because I'm passionate about not letting us just be, I don't know. And then dealing with what kind of a God he is. And I love, so I think the Christian argument is, what you said, it's the least I can do. And this is my response to him. It's my Christian faith-filled response to him. Whether I like it or not, 1 John, trust and obey, and obey. Whether I like it or not, sometimes I'm just going to have to grind my teeth and do it anyway. Because I believe that the Bible is true. I believe that Christ died on the cross for my sins. And that is my response, period. Yeah. But there's a whole group of people who don't believe the Bible, who don't believe that Christ died on the cross for their sins. And yet, it still makes a lot of sense to respond to a God that has that level of power in submission. Because otherwise, as I referenced, Don Quixote, I think that's the right reference, right? The guy who fought windmills. Okay. It's kind of like, or you can't fight City Hall. There are certain things that are bigger than you, that it's a waste of your time. And a little bit nonsensical, not logical, illogical, for you to say, well, I'm going to fight against it. To me, it would be like saying, well, today I choose to disagree with gravity.
Right.
It is.
Yeah.
You can't. Yeah. You can say you're going to, but that's not going to work out. And so yes, I agree. Of course, as from a Christian point of view, I agree. Like, it's the least I can do to submit. And that's my Christian response. But there's also a logical response to this. If there is a massive God, I love that you said it that way. If there is a massive God who created the universe, right? I am a drop in that bucket. And it's illogical for me to try to rework reality according to what I prefer it would be. It's much smarter for me to figure out what reality is and live inside the boundaries that are truth. Right.
And that's what this is. This is truth. He created truth. He is truth. And so when I want truth, which so many of us say that we do, and if I want truth, I need to go to the source. And some things, again, I know I keep saying this, some things, they're not going to sit well with me. Some things are just going to sit ugly. And yet I need to recognize that it is truth. Do I want to be in truth or don't I want to be in truth? And I want to be in truth. I want to be, and then on top of that, obviously all the blessings of being a follower of Jesus. So, which I consider them huge.
Yes. And so it's a full circle moment because that's where the emotion.
Right.
And the very personal faith is a unique individual experience. But it's a partnership I'm going to sometimes submit, really all the time, submit. Like I said, you can decide to wake up and disagree with gravity, but you're still going to submit to it, whether you agree with it or not.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah. So the personal intersecting with the intellectual, the intimate experience intersecting with what's real and true around us. I think that was a really good full circle moment. And I know you have a hard stop, so let's pray it out. What do you think? Do you have more you want to add?
Nope, that was great.
How about from your...
No. Nope. It's good.
Okay. Let's pray it out. Right. Thanks for doing this. You're the best.
Thanks.
We have the best. We have the best people. God, thank you so much for this time and for helping us deal with our doubts. Thank you for assuring us of your truth and for the spirit that you've given to us as a gift. God, we ask that you would help us leave from this day and this time better equipped to cope with our own doubts and the doubts of people we love and know around us. God, would you give us an extra measure of yourself? Not that we would be right all the time or have all the answers at the tip of our tongue, but that we would witness to you because you are truth, you are reality. Help us to grasp it a little bit better and show it a little bit better to the people around us. We ask it in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Hi, I'm Holly, and I'm the primary teacher and author here at Study with Friends. My education is from a Reformed theological seminary, so you'll see that come through as we teach and study together. But on occasion, I'll introduce concepts from other doctrines when I think they shed light on the material, just so that we can have a well-rounded understanding of lots of different perspectives on the text. We strongly believe that you should know and understand who's teaching you the Bible. And so you can learn more about me at studywithfriends.org or zondervan.com. We're just really glad you're here.